Every crime story has a breaking point. For Chris and Shanann Watts, that moment came early on the morning of August 13th, 2018 in the quiet town of Frederick, Colorado. To everyone watching from the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. Chris and Shanann had been married since 2012. They had 2 young daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, and another baby on the way. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with a baby boy they had already named Nico. She often posted cheerful videos on social media, showing off a bright, happy home. Chris worked for an oil company. A few years earlier, the couple had filed for bankruptcy, but by 2018, they seemed to be getting back on their feet. But behind closed doors, cracks were starting to show. Chris and Shanann's marriage had started to fall apart. Messages from Shanann showed a woman who felt alone in her own home. She missed Chris's love, his attention. She even wondered if he would still be there if they didn't have kids. She begged him to meet her halfway, to open up, to care. While Shanann was holding on, Chris was pulling away. During her 5-week trip to visit family, Chris started an affair with a co-worker named Nicole Kessinger. August 13th started off like any normal day. Just before 2 a.m., Shanann came home from a work trip. A friend had dropped her off. By 9 a.m., that same friend got worried. Shanann had missed a prenatal doctor's appointment. She wasn't answering calls or texts. She wasn't posting online. That wasn't like her. The friend called the police. That afternoon, officers arrived at the Watts home. Right away, something felt off. Shanann's purse, keys, and phone were all still inside. Her car was in the garage. The family dog was wandering around, but there was no sign of Shanann. A neighbor mentioned seeing Chris loading his truck early that morning. The moment was captured on a security camera. It didn't look like just another workday. The next day, August 14th, Chris went on TV, standing on his front porch. He looked calm, too calm, as he begged, "I just want everybody to come home." When asked if he and Shanann had fought, Chris simply said they had an emotional conversation. He didn't share more than that. To some viewers, he looked like a heartbroken husband. But to investigators, something didn't sit right. Chris looked like a man trying hard not to crack. By August 15th, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and the FBI were involved. That same day, Chris agreed to take a lie detector test, and he failed. Under pressure, he finally confessed. First, he told a twisted story. He claimed that Shanann had killed the girls and that he had killed her in a fit of rage. But soon, the truth came out. Chris had murdered them all. Later that night, he took detectives to a remote oil work site owned by his company. There, they made a heartbreaking discovery. Shanann had been buried in a shallow grave. Bella and Celeste had been placed inside 2 crude oil tanks nearby, their tiny bodies hidden in the darkness, out of sight. The search was over. The truth, no matter how horrifying, was out. Investigators gathered the final pieces of evidence. The happy life shown online had been a mask, and now the mask was gone. All that was left was the horror behind it. Chris was hiding the truth. For days, he had acted like a broken husband, but his face was too calm, his eyes were too dry. His story didn't add up. Detective Lee saw it. Something was very wrong, so she changed her approach. "Chris, your dad is here. Do you want to talk to him?" Chris nodded. For the first time, he looked like a real person. He seemed shaken. He sat down with his father, Ronnie Watts, and started to speak. Not to police, not to cameras, but to his dad. And what came out next would change everything. "I did it," Chris whispered. "I killed her." At first, he mixed truth with lies. He claimed that Shanann had killed their daughters after they argued, and that he had killed her in anger. He cried. His father looked shocked, but the detectives watching from the other side of the glass didn't believe a word of it. They knew this wasn't a moment of rage. It was planned, thought through. They pushed him. "Chris, that doesn't make sense." And finally the mask came off. Chris admitted everything. He had strangled his pregnant wife in their bed. As he was wrapping up the murder, Bella, his 4-year-old, walked in. She asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" Chris told her everything was fine, but it wasn't. It was just the beginning. With Celeste, just 3 years old, in the back seat, Chris loaded Shanann's body into his truck. Then he told Bella to get in. She climbed into the seat next to her mother's lifeless body. The ride to the oil field was 45 minutes long. Bella sat there silently the whole time. When they got to the site, he smothered Celeste with a blanket. She died quickly. Bella saw it happen. She was scared. She stayed quiet. But when it was her turn, she asked him just one thing. "Daddy, are you going to do the same thing to me as you did to Cece?" Those were her last words. then silence. Chris pushed both girls into 2 separate oil tanks, squeezing their small bodies through 8-inch openings. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave nearby. Detectives were stunned, not just by the evil of the crime, but by how calmly Chris told the story. No breakdowns, no questions, no feelings, just cold, clear steps, like he had rehearsed it. That's when they knew. This wasn't just a man who lied, this was something darker. He had started seeing a co-worker, Nicole Kessinger, during the summer. She was smart, fit, energetic. She believed he was already divorced. Chris told her the marriage was over. They went hiking together, stayed in hotels, sent each other love notes. On his phone, police found a calculator app used to hide photos of Nicole, as if she were a secret prize. To Chris, Nicole meant a fresh start, a new life, one without kids, stress, or debt. Nicole later said she had no idea what Chris was capable of. She wasn't involved in the murders. In fact, when she found out Shanann and the kids were missing, she called police. She gave them messages and search history. She said, "I just want to help." Still, her name would always be tied to a nightmare. On August 21st, Chris Watts was charged with 9 serious crimes, 5 counts of first-degree murder, unlawful ending of a pregnancy, 3 counts of tampering with a body. He could have faced the death penalty, but Shanann's family asked for something else. They didn't want more death. They had already lost 4 lives. That was enough. So on November 6th, Chris made a deal. He pleaded guilty to everything. No trial, no cameras, just one courtroom, and 2 words: "Guilty, Your Honor."